Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, the evening edition. This is Monday night, and we're giving this a shot. We're going all different directions here. The audio is going into Clubhouse. The video is going into YouTube, and we're all talking on Zoom. It's getting very confusing. If we add a couple more platforms, we'll be completely meta. So anyway, I want to welcome everybody here. If you want to join the conversation, if you're in YouTube, you can just click on the little link. If you're in Clubhouse, there is a link to get to Mukana directly. And you can ask questions there, as well as chat with everybody via text. So you can listen to things in Clubhouse and chat with text. So anyway, check that out. And then basically how this works is we're doing this once every evening. Now we do this every morning. You can find out more information on if you register, and that link is in YouTube. But if we do this every morning, in the evening, we're doing this once a week just to see how it goes. Now we will do a dedicated Clubhouse on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. But today we're just kind of simulcasting to see how it works. So at 6:30 in the evening, we'll start up. This is just an open Q&A until 8 o'clock. So any questions that you have around virtual production, media production, we're going to discuss those questions. We've got, if you're in Clubhouse, we've got about 20 panelists here that we are all discussing this process, which again, we do every day, every morning, but we're doing it in the evening as a test. We had people who just couldn't make it in the morning, whether they're other part of the world or for other reasons. And so we have people coming in from all over the world today. So, Bill, let's go ahead and jump into the questions.
Absolutely. The highest voted one so far today is from James in Dublin, Ireland, who says to get 720p image in Zoom using the portal, does the Zoom show editor need to spotlight the 720p source for all attendees?
Somebody has to be at full screen for it to want 720p. So fundamentally, if everybody's in grid view, it's not going to ask for 720p until something makes that request. Go ahead, Tucker.
Yeah, and as far as it actually bumping the meeting, so flipping the switch in the meeting, that it honestly doesn't even have to get all the way into the meeting. It just needs to join the waiting room. If it's in the waiting room for about 20 seconds, it's going to bump the meeting up to 720 capable. And then, like Alex said, if no one has someone stretched beyond 720 on their displays, then it will not pull 720 for the view.
So but a lot of people get confused because they also don't open their window all the way up. So if someone's got to not only request it but open their window wide enough so that it'll request the 720p. Go ahead, Ed.
I was just going to say, Tucker, I haven't had the experience where the Zoom room will bump it in the waiting room. I've actually had to make sure that it comes in to a meeting. So that was a great news if that's a newer behavior, or one that I haven't encountered, I should say.
Yeah, my understanding is that's actually somewhat early on. I heard that, and I'm assuming it is still active. So if you've seen it active recently, I've seen it active a while back. So let's say it still works.
Go ahead, Dan.
And just a reminder, it doesn't have to stay in. You can join it for a couple minutes and take it right out.
Next question.
Moving on, Jan Landy in Las Vegas asks our next question. I noticed that a few of you are using the windscreen on your Heil PR40s, but I cannot find it on their site. What are you using, and why are you using a windscreen?
Go ahead, Jason.
The windscreen does not come from Bob Heil. In fact, it's basically just the more permanent version of the foam, that you can get anywhere and from anything. This is a really neat one, and Zen Pro Audio has it. I could swear that I got it from some musicians friends. Now I'm completely blanking, which is funny because they email me every week. But yeah, it is a custom designed piece, and it is built specifically for the Heil PR40. They're about $30, and someone's going to know where they're coming from. I'm sorry.
I think we just showed it. I think John Pruitt has it up that we cut to it. So, go ahead, TJ.
I got mine at Broadcast Supply Worldwide.
Yep. Thank you, BSW.
And it definitely cuts down on plosives. I mean, it is the Heil PR40 is already pretty resistant to plosives. That's the big, heavy, low end popping. But the windscreen definitely cuts it to zero. Just about. Go ahead, John, and then Jan.
I got mine from Zen Pro Audio, and I use it in addition to the plosives. I use it as I need to keep my face this far away from the microphone trick. It helps me be a mnemonic.
Go ahead, Jan.
So, John, I noticed you have the same microphone I do in gold, but they don't make the windscreen in gold color either?
I haven't found one in gold, but that's probably because it's the third party.
And part B, does your beard ever get caught into that windscreen?
No. I never get that close.
Next question.
Moving on to Matt Cooley of Montreal, Quebec, who's in with our next question. I'm looking for a small digital mixer with 8 auxes to use for live remotes. We'll use the auxes to feed IFBs, which is an interruptible fold-back monitor for somebody who's doing talent work. Does anyone have any experience with the PV Aureus, Aureus? And then they've got a link to it.
I don't know if any of us have used that that mixer. Small and 8 auxes is usually not something that goes together, but it's quite quite possible. Go ahead, Tim.
I would suggest maybe Allen Heath SQ7, or well, the SQ7 is the biggest one, but the SQ5 does everything that the SQ series does. A little bit less on board, like a few less faders, but I think that thing has 12, maybe 14 aux outs, and it's pretty simple to use.
Go ahead, Jason.
I adore Allen and Heath for analog mixers. I've never used their digital consoles, but I would assume that they are just as good. I don't know that. The one that you're bringing up, the PV, for that price, I've got to go with a Behringer X32. I mean, yeah, it might be a little bit more, but like just hands down the best. And they keep updating their app, and it's just impressive over and over again.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
I think you're Zoom muted, Andy.
I am not a huge fan of the X32, although I have an X32 and 2 M32s, and I use them all the time, and they're a lot of power. I am a bigger fan of the Allen and Heath consoles. The SQ would certainly do it, although it would be more money. The thing that nobody said, though, that I think is important is that most of us who've been around audio for a long time pretty much dismiss anything made by PV without even looking at it. Like, I didn't know they made a digital console, but it would take a lot to convince me that it was even worth looking at it if someone sent it to me in a box to play with. Like, I'm exaggerating a little.
It's not snobbery if you're right.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, I know professionals use PV was made more for the bands, for if you're a band, then you want to get a PV. But I don't have the model number, but Soundcraft just came out with a low-end digital mixer to meet the demands of streaming. So you might want to look at Soundcraft. I don't remember the model number, but I know they just came out with one.
Pretty much everything that we use, if it's not mobile, I mean, if it's a mobile style mixer, then it's Sound Devices. Pretty much everything under about, for me, under about $6,000 or $7,000, or at least $4,000 is all X32s. Under $500 tends to, or $500 or $600 tends to be XR18s. The Behringer really turned a corner. The Midas, I think, is worth it. The Midas upgrade, so the M32s, scribble pads, and some other assorted improvements. And so if you can afford a little bit more, it's worth it. I use a lot of the X32 racks with an X-Touch controller. And the reason for that is that it lets me keep all of my audio GAC into my rack, and I don't have to have a lot of cables coming out. I just have it's just a remote control. I go to X32, and then I switch to Yamaha QL1s, and so which we just bought another one of. But that's kind of how we've approached it for the last almost a decade. Go ahead, Andy, and then Jason.
Yeah, I totally agree with the X32R, the X32 rack, or the other one I would think about if you want something a little better is the M32. Yeah. The M32R, which is the smaller chassis version, which still gives you XLR analog 16 ins and 8 outs.
And the X32 producer is one that'll slide into a 19-inch rack. So you can put it into something. So it's, you're giving up a couple of sliders, but but it's but a couple faders, but it's pretty slick.
You're giving up scribble strips though, which to me makes it
Right.
unusable.
That's
Because the
a good point.
faders do so many things. The M32R is tall, but it is 19-inch rack mountable if your rack is long enough. Yep.
Oh, very good. Very good. I for some reason I didn't know that. Now go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, just one last thought on that. There is a major, first, if you've never used a digital console, I don't think I could have learned a digital console if I hadn't learned on an analog console first. So there's a big caveat here, which is if you're going straight digital and you're not going to have faders and you don't understand signal pathways, be very careful about, just getting a rack unit because you can get lost.
Next question.
Tim Harden of San Lorenzo is in next with, I have an Atem Mini Pro ISO, but I use the USB-C output as a webcam. Do I have to give up that feature when I want to record?
Go ahead, Jason.
Yes.
Yeah. You'd have to, you either need to figure out, especially for the ISO, you would have to take the HDMI and run it through something else that's going to digitize it back into the computer. But yeah, Jason was more succinct, but I'm just explaining it out a little bit more. All right, go ahead. Next question.
Jan Landy of Las Vegas. Is there a way to automatically convert a Zoom invitation link to open in Zoom OSC rather than Zoom?
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
It's not a link, but there is part of the OSC Zoom can if you just give it meeting ID, it's part of the thing that you can actually automate. So yes, the answer is yes. If you have the meeting passcode and whatnot, you can paste it directly from the URL into that little macro thing, and it will support the command.
Go ahead, Tucker and Benjamin.
One of the things that I think is on the roadmap, it's not there yet, but is deep linking. When it gets to deep linking, you could basically do a URL redirect and just replace the URL, and it'll go. But it's on the roadmap. It's not there yet.
You go ahead, Benjamin. That's it. Benjamin agrees. John?
I was going to say, if you're using Windows, you could probably change the helper app and select Zoom OSC instead of Zoom. I think you can probably do the same thing on a Mac. I'm just not as versed on how to do that.
Oh, yeah, you can on Firefox. You're absolutely right. I didn't even think about that.
If you look at the chat, Andy Carluccio said he has a YouTube video on parsing the link. So it's not automatic, but there is a way to do that. Next question.
Moving on to the Seventh Scroll out of Brooklyn, New York. We're a nonprofit using an Atem Mini Pro ISO for health classes and have learned a lot from you all. Do we have a date for the Resolve classes? Thanks in advance. And it's Mike from the Seventh Scroll.
I have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure that the first class is on the 27th of February. So I don't have it right in front of me, but we're rolling up. So it'll be in the next couple of weeks. So and then it'll be every week for, I believe, 4 weeks. So,
and did you arrange with the guys?
Sale? Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
There'll be a sale. Yeah, there'll be a sale next week. So stand by. Yep. Next question.
Paul Prusakowski of Gainesville, Florida is up next, and his question is, any tips on how to identify the IP address on a piece of hardware that was pre-sent by a manufacturer? It isn't getting assigned by DHCP, and it has no user's manual. Ooh.
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, man, that's awesome. So unless someone has an extremely clever way, like an angry scanner, you're going to need to at least know the first 2 octets. If not, good luck. I would say limiting the subnet and then just scanning and then looking at the routing table is your best bet.
Go ahead, Tucker.
Yep, the ARP table in your router will be your best bet there. Or, yeah, that's pretty much it. ARP table or MAC address table. But the MAC address table, it's a 2-step process. You would need to go to your MAC address table, then you would need to go to your ARP table and check in your router.
Next question.
Andy Dolph of Durham, New Hampshire says, I'm looking for an inexpensive solution to get security cameras outputting RTSP streaming so they can be viewed on the public internet, embedded in a web page for students to check line length before they go to the dining hall. Cameras were installed before I was involved.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yes, one security. They output RTSP, and my NDI is gone again.
Go ahead, John.
So if I can clarify, I think I worded the question badly. The cameras output RTSP. I'm trying to figure out what I can put RTSP into that will give us a player that's embeddable on a web page.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I was just gonna. Okay.
John.
John, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, since I'm the cybersecurity guy, I'm gonna harp on cheap. Be very cautious of cheap solutions in this area. You don't want somebody hijacking your network.
Go ahead, Jason.
Pretty much any hardware encoder will do it. I don't know. OBS. I mean, if you could dedicate a PC to it, throw OBS on there and you're done.
You could, I mean, this would have an ongoing cost, so it's probably not the right solution, but you could point it towards AWS and then from AWS do whatever you want. So I mean, that's kind of the cloud solution to it. But of course it's going to have some kind of cost that's constantly running. Go ahead, Tucker.
Guardian Apps makes something called the RTSP mini server, and you could subscribe multiple cameras. I think it's up to 16 with one instance running, and that'll convert to NDI, and then you can take that NDI feed to any other production system you want if you want to get more fancy than just a direct redirect.
We should ask that when we should one of these evenings we'll get Colleen Henry to come on, because I think that Streamline, she built something that just does streaming. She might be able to tell you how to hack that into a direct server that creates a player and everything. So let me, Streamline is on GitHub. You might want to take a look at it. I don't know if it's the right answer, but it might be something to look at. Next question.
Rick Begos of South Bend, Indiana says, I'm trying to use a Blackmagic Ultra Studio Recorder 3G to bring video and audio in via SDI from a Canon XA45. I'm getting video, but no audio. Tried in the system preferences, and there's no audio input, and also within Zoom, and nothing. Mac running Big Sur 11.2. Does anybody have any ideas?
The first thing to do is to go into the Blackmagic recorder, the software recorder that comes with it, and make sure that you're not getting audio there. That's usually, you want to know whether the hardware is passing the audio first, and then you can decide whether it's a software issue. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance that something, I'm not familiar with that particular camera's menu. I would immediately think, though, that, you're probably passing it to your monitor and not where you think you're putting it.
But the first thing I would do is, the software, that'll tell you that the hardware is working or not working. What you really need is go out of that camera into a monitor, like into something that is going to show it to you, because you're taking the SDI directly. You need something in there. And this gets into needing a SDI monitor that you can plug into, that you can just see what's going on. And those aren't necessarily the least expensive solution, but you got to have that if you're doing SDI or anything.
Is that an SDI camera, Alex?
The XA45, I think it is. He says he's going BH. I will open up a window. I'm not familiar with the. Oh, that's the XA. We used an older version of that. It's a good little camera. We've done stuff with there's an older version that we used to use. So yeah, SDI. Next question. It should work. But do make sure the mics are on. I know that sounds like a horrible thing to say but those mics we turned off all the time. All right, next question.
Yeah, it turns out to be that about 10% of the time.
Yep.
Ken Jordan of Epsom in the UK says, what lens would you recommend for the Blackmagic Design Pocket 6K Cinema if using an Atem Mini Pro as the main camera for Zoom video calls?
24-70. Go ahead, TJ, and then Jason.
I would also recommend a 28-70 if you have a slightly older model of that lens.
Yep. And I'm using the 16-35 right now with it.
But you're right at the end of it, right? You're near the end of it.
No, I'm a little bit in the middle, but
oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
But my camera's right on the desk on a bridge on my desk right in front of me, so I don't have any throw distance.
We were using the 16-35, and we found that we got to the end of it pretty quickly. We find that what we want is somewhere between 32 and 38, which puts it right in the middle of a 24-70, or not in the middle, but something that's more comfortable there. Go ahead, Jason, and then John.
I adore the 24-70. In fact, I mean, I can show you what it looks like. The balance is extremely good. This is maybe at about 35 millimeters. And yeah, I love it.
John?
I'm going to be looking at getting one of these. Is the 24 to 105 an acceptable option?
Yeah, it's just more lens than you'll need. But if you want to use it as an all-purpose lens, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I have that versus a 2470, which I'm going to keep on my Canon. That's all.
Is there a 24 to 105 2.8 throughout, or
No,
is that a?
I think there's just the
that's right.
f4.
That's what.
I would stick with
it's a 4.5, 5.6.
Yeah, I would be tempted to say stick with the one that's going to be 2.8 all the way through because you really want it. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, double muted. The lens I'm using, it's not on Blackmagic, but the Sigma 18 to 35, because it's still a crop sensor, it won't get you longer than 35, but it is 1.8 all the way through, which can be really nice. And if you know you're not going to need more than 35, it's been a fantastic lens. But yeah, no f2.8 2470s. Or, I mean, 24 105s, obviously.
Yeah, and this especially for Zoom, the Sigma 24 to 70 is enough. I mean, I'm using an L lens, the Canon L lens on mine, but what you're looking at right now for me is a 6K with a Canon 24 to 70. Next question.
Moving on to Mark Harder of Brooklyn. And Mark asks, can anyone recommend a remedial mid-level networking course, YouTube series, networking for dummies kind of learning experience? I'm not illiterate, but I could use some hands-on production-oriented examples and challenges of internet protocols.
Go ahead, Jason, and then Tucker.
Lynda.com is normally $50 a month, but many, if not all, libraries will give you that for free. Go get a library card, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find what you need.
You got lots of thumbs up on that.
Yeah, look at the different manufacturers. Juniper Networks has incredible startup networking, and going through their courses, you don't have to get into their really advanced stuff, but their basic courses are incredible.
Laura?
I just want to mention that lynda.com is now LinkedIn Learning. It was bought by Microsoft.
Yep. It's great. I've been a subscriber since forever. Go ahead, John.
Oh, no, I was going to mention the LinkedIn Learning thing.
Yeah. And we're going to do some more soon. We're going to do some more like just general Q&A. We had Aaron Mailer coming in and doing, talking through things, but I think that really what we need is just an hour, at least once a month, where we're just doing networking questions and just have a networking conversation because there's enough people. So that doesn't preclude doing a lynda.com or LinkedIn Learning or anything else. But I think that it'll scare up some questions, and we're just going to, so once a month we'll do that, maybe even as early as next week. Next question.
Maggie Barton Baird is next from Edmonton, Canada. Does anyone have any thoughts or advice on creating production schedules for broadcast across multiple time zones? My instinct is to use time zone of the video that controls time zone of the video, I guess, in the control center and have everyone else convert their time zone. But I worry that leaves a lot of room for error.
Go ahead, Jason.
Google Calendar and Google Sheets are your friend.
Yeah, if you're building, the main thing is that you can do that as a conversion. Now, I can tell you that when we're doing international, when we've done a lot of international work, so that's all I used to do. We generally started feeding to Zulu. So it was UTC, but all of our meetings were just set in Z. So you just see 1800 Z, 1200 Z. Go to 24-hour clock and put a Z at the end, and that just stands for UTC. It's just shorter. So I don't know if Zulu is a military reference, but it's definitely used in the military as a general reference, because when you have to sync everybody, you just want to find one time and let them figure out how to pivot from that time. And the easiest way to do that is UTC or GMT or Zulu. So
aviation.
It's aviation. Yeah. So I wasn't sure whether it was military or aviation, but they're closely related. Anyway, so we tend to try to sync everybody up. Now, sometimes we'll have the Z and then we'll have a bunch of other times, but we really want to make sure that that's there. One thing you want to be conscious of and you want to think of it at the beginning of an event or beginning of a production is when you're going to have meetings, and you have to figure out where everybody is. And you're not going to find a time that is perfect for everyone, but you do want to set your meetings and figure out, like, that's something to kind of hash out. Like the last job we had, we had people in Minneapolis, London, Philippines, we've had folks in New York, and so you have to figure out. It turned out for us about 3 o'clock in the afternoon was the least painful for everybody involved, and it may not be in their business time. Some people just like working at night. So fortunately, our London person preferred to meet late at night. So it just depends on, but you have to work that out with your team. Go ahead, Jan.
There is an app called Time Scroller for iOS, which I use to figure out time zones all the time, because it allows you to set the time you want and then see everybody else's time.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I highly recommend, if you're working with people all over the world, that you use Skype. Now, the only reason I say Skype is because it lets you know when they're online. And if they're online at 3 a.m. and you're online at 11 o'clock in the morning, for all intents and purposes, you're at the same time zone. So, and then you could coordinate that way.
Laura?
One other cheap, easy solution is all cell phones have an international clock in them. You literally just put the city in, and it will tell you what the current time is in that city.
I mean, the main thing is that beyond these, the issue that we're dealing with specifically for this is building the production pipe, schedules. So you have to have something in the schedule that is a hard number. And so if you are now, if I'm talking about someone being, completely separated. Now what you can also do is create UTC down the spine, and then create a bunch of time conversions that go on for 4 or 5. And what people can do is just hide the cells they don't need. So just hide the cells that don't relate to them, and then they can look at it that way as well. Next question
comes from Joshua Kuhn of Spartanburg, South Carolina. If you were going to pick new camcorders for streaming events, a la the Twit TV Canon Vixia route, what would you pick? Note, assume they're feeding into an Atem Pro ISO.
Go ahead, John.
Since I use a Canon Vixia right now, my next one's going to be a Blackmagic 6K.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
6K, hands down. Like dollars for bang, you cannot beat it.
Yeah, it's just stunning. Obviously we're expecting either new software or new hardware on Wednesday, so definitely don't buy anything tomorrow. So Blackmagic has got their own an Atem Mini Plus camera update that they've announced. So a lot of us are hoping for a PTZ camera. I don't know. We don't have any information, but we're all hoping that we're going to see a PTZ camera on Wednesday. But otherwise, the issue is any camera you buy other than the Blackmagic cameras, you're now giving up control. You can't shade them. You can't refocus them. You can't do anything else with them. If you buy into the Blackmagic, as soon as you dip your toe into the Blackmagic pipeline, you should just keep going, because it's just, once you get used to it, you're not going to be able to go back, and any money that you bought with another camera, you will feel like you wasted your money, because you will eventually need it. Especially if you're doing live, you need to be able to control the cameras, and it's the cheapest way to do it. Go ahead, Tucker.
I really hope that it's not a PTZ camera. I hope it is a PTZ head that is compatible with their stuff. And then
it won't be. Well, like if they do it, here's the thing: is that you take the micro body and you take the micro body and you put it into a PTZ. I think what a lot of people want is just there's lots of heads. I mean, Rush and all these other people make them. I think that where things people want is just something simple they can add that's got a 4/3 sensor with a little lens, and even built in. Just built-in lens, just something that's easy, that looks a little bit better than what everybody else is doing, that costs, $2,000. Like if I don't know what Blackmagic's going to do, but if they put out a little PTZ with a 4/3 inch chip that you could control from your Atems, and it was $2,000 or $1,500, they would sell all of them. Like they'd have another problem where we'd all wait for 6 months to get one. Jason and then TJ.
You know what I want that they'll never do? A 1080p web presenter. There are things the web presenter does that an Atem Mini does not do, and I just absolutely adore it.
Yeah, it's a great piece. I've stopped using it because it's 720p, but it's a great piece. It's a great box. TJ?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with everything said so far about the Blackmagic. If you really want to do something with the Canon Vixias, pretty much anything from like the last 8 years should work. As long as it's got an HDMI out, they'll
work. I mean, if you can buy them used and not spend much money, and
if you can pick it up for $100, sure.
But like Leo, if you talk about those, I mean, he paid $1,500 for each one of those, and he would have been I mean, it would have been a pretty great system. He doesn't have a Blackmagic switcher, so it wouldn't have affected him. Next question.
Andy Dolph, Durham, New Hampshire, comes in with thinking about getting a new IFB headphone for myself for Zoom meetings. I was about to pull the trigger on Ear Heroes, but I figured I'd check and see if others have better recommendations for the money.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, you can't beat them for the money. I am completely a convert of the Shure 800 series. Like the high-end quad drivers are absolutely beautiful, but yeah, they're more money.
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, you say IFB, and to me, that interruptible foldback means you're not looking for music quality sound. You want something where speech is clear as a bell, which is why I've gone with security headset type, the little micro mini ones. I use one from N-Ear, but it's the same as the Bumblebee, and there's 2 or 3 other brands that sell these really, really micro, really good for voice quality in-ear monitors, and they work fabulously.
Go ahead, Tucker.
Yeah, if you do want something that you can kind of dual use it for music and then also use it for Zoom, then I would recommend like the Etymotic Research. They're absolutely fantastic. This one is not one of the ones that's super easy to hide, but they are just awesome headsets.
The Bumblebees I think are a little bit more expensive, $200 or $300 or $100 or $200 more than the Ear Heroes. And then the one I'm wearing right now is the Audio Implements, which is kind of in broadcast the standard. It's a little less. It's single ear only. Don't get the universal one. Always pick an ear that you want to use because it's nice when it bends where it wants to go. so anyway, but you have to kind of buy them. It's like calling, a three-letter agency when you call Audio Implements, because they're like, what do you need? And you just list off some numbers and they go, would you like that 2 days? And you go, yes. And they go, okay. They just send it to you. So they're not very conversational, but they send you lots of, they serve a lot of folks. So that's a little less expensive if you want one ear. But I think I'm probably going to try to move to the Bumblebees as well. I'm just going to give them a shot. Next question.
Ash Shudev of New York City says, on a Mac, if using OBS to output to Zoom, what's the best way to route Zoom all speaker audio into OBS from Zoom so that I play back into the outgoing Zoom feed?
Go ahead, Jason.
The cynic in me immediately has to say, do not use OBS on a Mac. I love OBS. I love Macs. I don't love them together, straight up. But to answer your question, I'd say Audio Hijack or Loopback is absolutely going to be your friend.
Benjamin?
If you're looking for a free solution, Black Hole from Existential Audio is an excellent choice and free and does exactly that.
And just as a note, we don't have enough questions to get to 8 o'clock. So if you want us to stay here, you have to ask more questions. So anyway, next question.
Moving on, John Pruitt here in the panel from Huntersville says, does Clubhouse show any stats yet? No.
It doesn't. I don't know of any stats that Clubhouse has. I think we have about 35 or 40 people, 35 to 40 people right now listening in Clubhouse. Hopefully they like it. If anybody's there, and you just a reminder that you, or for the people there, just a reminder that you can use bit.ly/Q4TOH. Questions for the office hours, and you can jump in there and ask questions. Let us know if you're listening in Clubhouse and in Mukana. Let us know what you think. Is it a good experience? Is it a bad experience? We are going to work on two-way communication between Clubhouse and in our normal meeting. We just haven't got it quite sorted out yet. All right, next question.
Moving on to Kevin N. Murphy of Palm Desert, California. The TikTok generation requires lightning-fast videos, but the current workforce is a mix of folks who know how to slow down YouTube videos and many who do not. Are timestamps and a table of contents link in the description a good compromise to extreme brevity for a corporate audience?
Go ahead, John.
I'm extremely corporate. Keep it short. We don't have time for long videos. We've got too much work to do. TikTok has really helped, I think, with making training more relevant, more on the point, and shorter. And I think it's I'm 52. It's no matter what your age, I think it's a good thing to have short, punchy videos. It helps keep my attention.
I'm working on a series of videos when we launched the new website, and so I'm kind of been doing the designs, and everything else. And the way I'm building all of these videos is that I'm going to talk really fast not fast, but I'm going to hit all the points in the first minute. There'll be there'll be almost no intro. It'll be like, this is how you do this. And then I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to cover it really quickly. Then I'm going to talk about it some more in detail, and then possibly some more in detail. So the overall video might be, 6 or 8 minutes, but you'll get everything you needed in the first minute. The idea is that if you already mostly know it, you're just trying to figure it out. So the idea is kind of stacking that information onto it. And I'll put chapters in there so that people can, jump to the more in-depth one if they want to get to that piece too. So that's how I'm thinking about it right now, is that I do think that you might need more explanation than that TikTok level video. But I think that you need that version first, because it also just helps you absorb the other parts. Like when you get the 10,000 foot view, it's easier to understand the 100-foot view. If you start down in the 100-foot view, it's hard to get kind of the overall context. Go ahead, Jason.
My motto is simple. If you don't have time to edit, I don't have time to watch. And if you start with, hi guys, be sure to mash on that like button, you're done. Sorry.
I mean, you do have to kind of deal with the current generation that once you watch TikTok, you can't go back to watching YouTube, like in the same way. Like you're just like, oh, like the time it took them to do that intro, I could have seen 6 videos. Like, I mean, that's what's going through your head while you're talking, And so that's what people go think about. And so you just really got to get to the point. And we've needed this for a long time, in my opinion. Like everybody talks to, like it just, and I have to admit that part of my problem is that I listen to all my books between 1.5, depending on the speaker, between 1.5 and 2. So I can't even listen. I can't listen to anyone talk for a long period of time at 1x, because it's just, I actually can't concentrate because I think about other things between all the words. And we have to understand that the human brain is just speeding up. It's just able to, because I couldn't do it for a long time. Like at first it was like 1, then it was 1.2, then it was 1.5, then I pushed myself to 1.75. I find that 2, I have a hard time with some speakers keeping up with. But then your brain gets used to processing that, and then it really needs it to be that fast. So, if you're talking to the kids these days, they really need to come in fast. Go ahead, Laura.
Alex, just a personal suggestion. Find somebody who's a JAWS user and figure out how they listen to it that fast, because JAWS users go extremely fast with the speech. If you've ever heard it,
Yeah. Speed listening.
Yes, we do it, and I'm learning that it gets much quicker. Yes.
Yeah. Next question.
Okay. Kevin Murphy, Palm Desert, California, says, where do you love licensing music from? I'm aware of Artlist.io. Any others?
The hardest part with licensing music now is that most of my work shows up on one of these public CDNs, and all this. The problem is that when you license music, other people licensed it too, and then the problem is that they basically claim their video with everything in it. They don't claim that song, but they claim the video, and the song happens to be in it, and so then it gets ID'd, and you get copyright hits for using those songs. And so for most of our events, we're getting more and more into either building our own little jingles, or when it needs to be at a higher quality. What I was surprised at is how it's not as inexpensive as doing it, but it's not that expensive to hire somebody to actually make you something. There's a lot of folks that you can do it for as little as a couple $100 and are really good for a couple thousand. You can get something that's really, really well done, that's built for your show. One of the things for corporate clients that we're seeing a lot of our larger clients go to is that they will go to a composer and have them build the soundtrack for that year. So they're gonna, and they give them a pile of songs. We like this song and this song and this song. Don't make it sound like that song, but just feel like that song. And like Mac Break, it isn't Stopped by Jane's Addiction, but it's it's close. So anyway, those are the kind of things that you can kind of mix in. Go ahead, Jason.
I've said this before on office hours, but it's worth repeating. I have had copyright takedowns over bars and tone which absolutely makes me crazy.
You can actually get a
Alex
strike
the
for
same
that.
thing.
You just
Yeah,
so
you get a
bars and
strike
tone.
for
There's getting copyright, but you put bars and tone up, and you'll get a hard strike from NBC or whatever. Yeah,
it's absolutely maddening. So my answer is, the corporate equivalent of a lookbook. Score it. Get what's it called? Get Logic and use loops. Mix them together. They will automatically sync, and you'll be good.
The problem with the loops is that you can't use them by themselves. So
not by themselves, yes.
Because everyone else did that too. So you just have to be very careful. And then the other thing I'll say is that you want to play them into an unlisted event, not private event, but an unlisted event on your page, and you'll see what happens. With any song, you can just see what happens with the song. Hopefully not a copy. I have test accounts on YouTube, so I just play them out of the test accounts. And so if I get a strike, it's not on my main account. And I have lots of accounts. I don't know how hard that is to do now, but it used to not be hard.
I have so many from back in the day. It used to be a joke.
Yeah,
but
I've got
it's
like
much
20.
Harder now.
I got like 20. I got like 20 live enabled accounts. It took a lot of cell phones to get that, by the way. All right, next question.
Okay, suddenly we have a plethora of questions coming in. Ken Jordan of Epson in the UK is back with, so would you recommend holding off purchase of a Blackmagic Design Pocket Camera 6K Cinema with a 24-70 lens until after their Wednesday announcement?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I absolutely would. If someone's going to announce something that I want to use, absolutely. Don't touch anything until Wednesday. It's only 24 hours. It's not even 24 hours or 48 hours from now. It's like 36 hours from now. Go ahead, Tucker.
Yes, hold off, but have the buy button ready, because if the announcement is about that camera and it's something that doesn't require hardware revision, buy immediately.
You do with Blackmagic, it does make a difference to order very quickly, because they do keep track of who ordered what when, and it will jump from you get it immediately or 2 weeks from now to you get it sometime in 2022. So it is worth jumping on the Blackmagic stuff really fast. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, even Guy can't get it to you that quickly unless he really likes you and it's the right time of the day. But no, yes, absolutely. Be very ready. Decide, have your plan and your contingency, and then go.
With a brand new piece of hardware with Blackmagic or anybody, the other thing to think about though is that sometimes there's a 0.1 release or a 0.2 release that are significantly better than the 0.0 release. So if it's a brand new form factor, once they get the form factor right, it's usually fine. But if it's a brand new form factor, you may want to be, even if you have to wait 6 months, it may be worth it. Bill?
If the cost of the 6K now gets you a 12K, just guessing like everybody else, remember you're going to spend a fortune on storage. That's just
next question. Yeah,
we keep getting bigger rasters, and it drives us crazy. Attila Axe is next up from Ocean Shores, Australia. And he says, just received my first Stream Deck a couple of hours ago. What's the best way to set it up to open up OBS and start the virtual camera on Mac OS? I can assign the hotkey to start the virtual cam in OBS, but I need to find a way to open the app and execute the hotkey in one command. Would Keyboard Maestro work for that?
Good. Benjamin?
AppleScript might be a worthwhile pursuit. If you remind me later on Discord, I can share an AppleScript that does exactly that.
Perfect. Jason?
Update your firmware and then uninstall the Stream Deck app, and then Benjamin nailed it.
That's great. And by the way, Bill, when you just said storage on the last one, it popped into my head that what could be coming is a 12K Pocket Cinema.
Yeah, that was my thought.
All right, they got the chip. The chip's sitting there. Why not use it? All right, next question.
Joshua Kuhn of Spartanburg, South Carolina says, what are some red flags you've seen that say a client won't do what is needed for a quality production or Zoom or something like that? Note, how do you deal with this? At what point do you fire the client? It's a big deal when you do it.
Jason?
That's an extremely hard question to answer because those three are all it depends. At the end of the day, you do get good at this and you figure out how to do it in your own way. Suffice it to say, if they're trying to nitpick with line items and they want to understand why it's necessary, and then don't care about the answer, that'd be a good red flag.
Go ahead, Tucker.
If you're always waiting for the perfect client that works exactly like you want them to work, you're waiting like everybody else. Find a way to work with the difficult clients and you'll keep them forever.
Yeah, difficult clients are great because no one else wants to work with them. And if you figure out their number, man, are they amazing? You know, like they are the best clients ever because you figured out how to take care of them. You know, and once you figure that out, like you got them locked. I've had clients that were very, very difficult. I don't have any right now, but I in the past.
Alex has worked for the president, so you know there's that.
But in the past we worked with them and we got their number and we knew everything what they wanted down to the kind of coffee that they had and kept them for a long time because of that. Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, so it's a challenge. Because sometimes you have to educate these people, and because they have no idea what they're doing, they're counting on you to give them the solutions, and you have to prove to them that they could trust you so that they will do what it is you need them to do so they could have the best performance, the best show possible. It's just a matter of you being persuasive in how you're going to explain the challenges that what they want will affect the rest of the shoot and why it's impossible.
Yep. Andy?
Experience is that one of the things that can often make difficult clients difficult is if they feel like they're not being listened to. And they, that a lot of the time, particularly technically oriented folks, and I certainly include myself in this, have a tendency to dismiss their concern really fast because we know we have it solved. But to them, it's a huge mountain. And they feel like if you haven't let them explain the whole mountain, then you couldn't possibly have a solution to it because it's so big. And I have found that with some of them, not always, but often, if I let them tell me their horror story or whatever it is that's traumatized them enough to feel that way and empathize with them and then say, okay, so I have a plan to make sure that's completely impossible to ever happen again. That often then doing that once, I win them over.
Mm. Yeah.
And then they'll trust me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bill?
I've got no problem with difficult. I do draw the line at dishonest. I've had a couple of experiences over my career where there's somebody who just is so dishonest that I've had to cut them off entirely. And I had one where I went into a meeting and they looked me right in the eye and lied about what I had said about something. And I left that room and I never worked with them again. So just understand there's a difference between, difficult and not trustworthy.
Yeah, if we get cross-wired where we're clear that someone isn't being straight, we kill them immediately. Like not kill them, but we just fire them. Like we fire them. Like there's two things that I won't put up with clients. And it's pretty much the only two things that I really won't put up with. And one is them not being honest with us about what's going on. And the second is them trying to hire around me. So if they try to hire my freelancers or they try to hire my staff, I will immediately fire them. Like it's, like that's, I don't do that to them. I don't do it to other people. Like if you bring me in and I've never worked with that client, they're your client forever. As far as I'm concerned, I won't take the job, and I've walked away from work because someone wanted to go around the agency that brought me in to just hire us directly. And I just won't do it because your relationships are way more important than that. But if any client touches my employees without letting me know, so a lot of companies have hired our folks, but usually there's a discussion about it first. But if they touch them without talking to me, they're done. Like we won't work with them anymore. Jason?
Yeah, and just a sense of this, I'd say maybe over the last 12 years, I've maybe have 700-800 clients. I can count on one hand the number of times I've had to fire them, and Alex's cardinal sin list is pretty industry standard. So it's not like you're making the rules here. It's just not done.
Yeah, and if you're on the receiving end of that, like if you're someone that a client, you get brought in by someone you've never worked with that client, and then that client comes to you and wants to hire him, just know that oftentimes this is a pretty small industry, and you have to work with the folks again, and that's really one that's hard to get over. So that's a really dangerous place to go in general. So so for me, the other things are basically triple bidding. I generally I don't fire a client, but if they say we're triple bidding or they're saying we're examining your bid against others, usually I just stop responding. like I'm just not like I'm okay. That's fine. I mean, I'm not upset. It's just that it tells me where the client's coming from a budget perspective, and it just I know immediately that it's not going to turn out well. And it's never going to turn out well, and it'll always be stressful. And I just drop them, and I don't tell them anything. I just get busy. I'm always really busy, so it's just a matter of I just get busier. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I think as you get older, you start to work out the good ones, and you get a lot more confident within yourself. And it's think do get. If you have a really good attitude in life in general, you tend to attract the right people. And I just find that the rubbish clients don't come my way anymore.
Yeah. And the key is also just being committed to every job matters. Like every job that we get matters, no matter how small or large or whatever. We had jobs that came in that were, $2,000 job, and we crushed it. We crushed it. And then we did $500,000 worth of work for that client the next year. It's so you just have to treat it really you have to treat all the jobs. If you're going to take a job, you knock it out of the park. You don't take a job and go, well, I'm not getting paid that much, so I'm not going to spend much energy on it. That's insane. You want to always be, if you're going to take the job, you're going to crush it. Next question.
You're going to love this. Andy Carlucci, our friend with Zoom OSC in Washington, D.C., is in saying Universal Control received more tickets from office hours on Saturday than in the history of the product, it seems.
Yes!
we brigade good.
So for those of you listening, we were talking about we want to get integration with this company that makes this really cool piece of software. And Andy's like, I don't know if they're not, I don't know if they're going to be responsive or not. So if you just fill out a ticket, and we just pointed everybody at the ticket. And the reason that that's important is that Andy paid attention to us largely because suddenly 70 people just showed up out of nowhere, and so there's an incredible power as we grow this group. And one of the reasons we're joining the evening is let more people do it. But as you build up market power as a group, especially one that's as tight as this one, it opens up a lot of things. Not just that it gets us something, but it allows us to move the industry. Because what's now going to happen is this company is going to work with Andy so it's allowing us to move the industry in a way that is advantageous to us, and advantageous to the whole industry. But usually there's not one group that's moving in one direction at the same time, which is what can cause a lot of market force. And the industry's small enough that doesn't take that many of us, obviously. But we still swamp them. Go ahead, Tucker, and then Jason.
Well, hang on. He continues with the question, so go ahead and discuss, but then I want to come back to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, he did say that we're in conversations, so the tickets did work. And then he basically says, we, as a Zoom OSC group of office hours, we need to put our heads together and kind of help him figure out what features we want them to implement, which is amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So let's. I think that's going to be a longer discussion on Saturday. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, keep in mind, we're not a mob. Like, we don't ask for stuff that we're not interested in. That's the other part of it. And my immediate thought is, I want to know whoever had to write that email, like, so you crashed our ticket system. I guess you guys are pretty cool, huh? Like, what did that email say? What was that opening line? So, hi guys.
It's good. Go ahead, Jan.
I'll say I've been in a lot of groups, but there's no more group that's more altruistic than this group. It's for the benefit of everyone. And, I've been with Alex now for a long time. We've had our disagreements for sure. I've been kicked out of the panel and I went away for a while, but I will say this, as I'm back, it is the most addictive thing I know, because when I wake up, I want to get there really early in the morning, and I say, I'm sorry, I missed the 640. I missed the 640. So then I'm forced to listen to it on YouTube or back room. But I am telling you, if for somebody who has no alternative motives whatsoever, this is the most influential show in my life right now, because the information that you get is phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. If you want to grow, there's no better place than to grow with all these people that are in the room right now.
And it's because of everyone. I mean, it just is an incredible group that's shown up. So next question.
John Pruitt of Huntersville, who's here on the panel. Anyone care to speculate about the potential Blackmagic design announcements on Wednesday?
We keep on touching on it.
I think we
Everyone,
already have.
they're like,
yeah.
what? I think we're the one group that is more excited about Blackmagic keynotes than Apple keynotes. It's like Blackmagic is like, what are they going to put out that we can use? So anyway, so it'll be interesting. I think that we have a wish list. I mean, one is the Atem Mini Pro is what we call it, with TA3 inputs and an extra HDMI output. I'd be happy with that. Like, you just gave me that, I'd be happy. I think things that are more likely are 4K updates for the minis, so they can handle 4K from the cameras. The long shot would be a PTZ camera or a 12K pocket cinema, since they already have the chips. Those would be longer ideas. But man, pocket cinema for like $4,000 that has those chips, that would be kind of amazing. TJ.
Yeah. How about maybe like even a mini XLR input on the Atem Mini?
That's what I'm saying. TA3.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. TA3s. Yep. So anyway, we'll see. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, I just was going to say, at their pace of development, because since COVID hit, I don't think there's a company that's done more R&D and shipped more products that have been more impactful than Blackmagic. I mean, they've been working at an amazing pace.
Here's the crazy thing. I think a lot of the stuff was already in the pipe. Like, I think they just happened to be in the right place at the right time. It takes too long to build hardware. So I don't think I don't think they've developed. I think we're just about to start seeing what they developed in COVID. I think all this other stuff with, just knowing how long it takes 18 to 24 months for any of this hardware to come from an idea to our house. So I think a lot of the stuff was already, because remember, the mini form factor was out before COVID. It was out in IBC in the fall. Go ahead, Jason.
And I mean, just from having a few minutes at the last handful of NABs with Grant, I'm pretty sure he's just getting warmed up. I mean, really, like he's kind of a runaway at just nailing stuff.
The hard part for the advantage that Blackmagic has is really one person that's supported by a lot of people. The one person thinking about what he wants to do. The disadvantage is just one person that's thinking about it. And so there's a lot of things like routers. It'd be really nice to have 4K routers. Like, I'm just saying, I got a whole bunch of 40 by 40s because I don't have a 4K 288 by 144. Not that I'm bitter. All right, next question.
Tony Mobley, our friend from Newman, Georgia, is back in with Alex. Are you using additional software with your multiple Atems and iPhone setup?
Not yet. So I don't have it in this room, but in the office I have it, and so I'm going to be tying it all together with Companion. So I don't have so Companion is what I'm going to be doing right now. It's not set up, but I've already started playing with it in Stream Deck, and I'm trying to get it all working out. I used to have my software that I built for the telestrator and everything else talking directly to the switcher, but I'm not going to do that in the future. What I'm going to do is build it so that it talks to the Companion, or uses OSC and just basically is passing the commands back and forth. So that I have a kind of a layer of abstraction that will allow me to impact everything. So my first step is to get the software that's custom talking in OSC, and then eventually try to get into the builds for Companion if that first part succeeds. But yeah, so that would be it. Companion, I think, is the thing to tie. It's the one ring to rule them all. Next question.
Mike Burns here on the panel from Spokane, Washington. How can I roll in a video package into an Atem Mini without using a Stream Deck? I've tried an iPhone with HDMI adapter. However, having audio issues. Is this doable?
So actually, I meant HyperDeck. I got my decks mixed up.
Go ahead, Jason.
Stay tuned. We happen to know somebody who knows a fair bit of neat stuff and protocols that you're really going to like with less than $80 some worth of hardware.
Yeah. So Wednesday morning, you'll have to watch the recording if you can't come in the morning, but Wednesday morning, Jonas Tuttle is going to be talking about his Playout B, which is a Raspberry Pi based HyperDeck, essentially. And so we're excited to have him walk through that. And I got a new Raspberry Pi. I had old ones. I was like, I better get a new one. So I got a new one just to follow along. All right, next question.
Benjamin Antiput here in the panel from San Carlos, California says, what's your strategy to white balance cameras in a multicam shoot? Is a color checker passport worth the price and time investment?
So yeah, the larger ones are a little easier to use. I think I have a larger one. Go ahead, John, while I'm talking.
Yeah, I just think, as Alex said, the larger ones are definitely worth it. I found it definitely worth it for my even single camera photography shoots. It really does help with the white balance. And if you want to get consistent color across all your cameras, you need to have a consistent color and gray card source.
There's and which one is that, TJ?
This is the color checker from what used to be called Gratag Macbeth, and they got bought and sold, so I don't remember what the actual company name is now.
X-Rite.
X-Rite. And this is another X-Rite one. This is the actual X-Rite color checker video, which is this one here. That is pretty good. One of the things you want to make sure of is if you're using one of these cards, is you get one that you are absolutely sure will work with the, and I have that little color checker that Jason's showing too. It's just harder in frame because it's so small. But one of the things that you want to make sure of is that it's represented in Resolve. So Resolve will do auto color correction. So if you're shooting something in video, you can just put that in for a frame. You just put it in and pull it out. And then you can, Resolve will automatically, color correct base. You can literally pull it over and select all the colors, and it will do the color correction to tie it back together. Yeah. So now what I do to do this is I use, we're going to talk about this because I use a demand chart. And the reason I use that is because it's not because of the colors. In fact, I've been thinking about printing one on my own, because what I need to be able to do, and this is something you could probably do, Benjamin, is you could probably get this online. I mean, you could build something in Photoshop to do this. Get the colors, and they don't have to be perfect, because it's not about the color value. It's about different colors, right? So, but you could use the Demont chart as a reference of like, this is what raw colors, or use an X-Rite or whatever, and get those colors out. Then you build it into a rectangle. And the reason I build it into a rectangle is because I take one camera and I call it my master camera, and I put it in the inside, and I put it into a switcher, and then I do a transition, the square transition, but I make it would actually be easier to print it as a square. Yeah. And you basically cut that square of colors, those blocks of colors, in half with your transition. So on the inside, you have a the master camera, and on the outside you have your camera you're trying to match to that master camera. And you just set both cameras right next to each other, and you go through one after the other. And what you're looking for, anytime you can see a line, you're off. As soon as the line disappears all the way around it, you're on, and it's a real fast, people think I'm crazy when if you talk to shaders, they think I'm nuts, but they find out that it's really accurate and really fast to do it that way. And you don't need any of the technical understanding of anything else other than you're just visually putting it together. And if you print it out of something on a matte, if you print matte, on a really high quality inkjet, it's probably enough for you to pull it off, or send it out. And so again, I use the Demont chart because I've used it for, 15 years. But you could probably print one out to do that. And it's super fast to do that. Ray, and then Benjamin.
I just wanted to point out that there is a photo version of the Color Passport and a video version, just so you know. And the larger ones are better, but these are handy when you're out in the field.
I have one of those little ones in my bag all the time, and then when I travel, I've got a collection of Demont. There's like a little folding one that you can get that's the Demont chart. And then when we're doing production, we have a larger Demont chart to do it. But again, you could probably, the way I do color matching specifically, you could probably just make something up and print it out and it would work out. Bill.
This is personal, but I have never had a worse customer experience than I did with X-Rite. I ordered I had a terrible thing, and I'm going to explain it. I'm not saying they're horrible company.
We're running out of time, so I don't think we can go into a heavy dig right now.
Okay,
so
fair enough.
We'll just leave it into it. It was bad. Go ahead, Benjamin, real quick, and then we'll move on.
Real bad.
Just real quick. So I'm a novice at this. So it would just like horizontal bars of color across like just a giant poster board be the same effect and just cut down the center.
Yep.
Okay. And then you could just
it'd be easier to do it. You can have more. You could probably just do it as one set of bars. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's got to be one set though, because you have to be able to split it. So you're either going to split it front back, or the reason by doing a rectangle, you get more colors, you have more boxes, and then split them. That's all. But yeah, you could do it in a straight line. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Cool. Interesting. Yep. I'll wait to see your design. Don't do it in a circle because the transition on the Atem is soft in the circle. All right, next question.
Moving on to Jan Landy in Las Vegas. I have some amazing video music footage of famous bands circa 1990 that I've taken personally that no one has ever seen before. I feel that some of this footage is such a shame to not post on YouTube for the world to see, but I'm afraid of copyright infringement. How can I get them seen by the world?
I'm going to talk to them. I mean, here's the deal: is that especially for older bands, as long as it's not the Eagles, they really take it personally.
There's a story behind that. He's not kidding.
Yeah, the Eagles are really, they have a really horrible sense of humor about video on the web and audio on the web. And I've received that horrible sense of humor from many lawyers. So anyway, all at the same time. But other than the Eagles, a lot of times what you can do is you can take that video and you can literally just play it out, stream it to YouTube as an unlisted event, and just see what it does. Use it. You want a test event so you don't get a strike. But if it just says you can't monetize it, then who cares? Like, you just put it up. Because one of the artists all have three things. They can say track it. So the coolest artists just track it. That's Katy Perry and Taylor Swift and everything else. They don't do anything. Then you have demonetize, which means you can't run any ads against it. Then you have strike, and so you just want to know who's going to strike you or not. The other ones don't really matter. Like, they don't affect you. I mean, we have lots of them. You get lots of them. You just all you care about is the strikes. You just ignore everything else. But the non-modern, the older bands, the problem you're going to have is the older bands are the ones that are the least progressive in their thought process around the copyright. They think it is actually going to affect them in the way that it just doesn't anymore. I mean, they're better off. A band that was popular in the 90s is better off getting some more exposure than they are trying to squeeze a little money out of you for putting it on YouTube. But they don't understand that. Their managers don't understand that. Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, hypothetically speaking, let's just say it was Prince or Aerosmith, just hypothetically speaking, because I was on a production crew with these kind of bands, and I had a Sony camera before anybody had cameras, and I was just taking some video stuff. The audio quality is what it is, but the video quality. Can I talk about the stories that went and say, well, I did this,
it's just
and then
the way that the machine works? Not really. Like you could do it, and you could, again, you just put the video up and see if you're going to get a strike or not. I mean, there's a high probability you won't, but Prince is right up there with Eagles. Of his team is not super excited about that kind of thing. Go ahead, John.
You might be able to put up the video without the audio and talk over it. And
you definitely be able to put the video up. Yep.
Yeah, but you just have to kill the audio unless you have really good lawyers.
You don't need good lawyers. It just doesn't matter. Like, they're not going to come at. They're not going to sue you. What they're going to do is just block it and strike your thing. So you don't have to have good lawyers. You just have to put it on a test event. Make sure you're not going to get a strike. All right, next question. We're going to move on.
Tucker DeGoo is in for the panel. Alex, can we get an update on your AJA scope experiences since that show?
Well, I had it for 2 months. So the show was the end of the scope experience, not the beginning of it. So I was testing it for 2 months against a whole bunch of HDR projects and everything else. It's amazing. We're now trying to figure out how we budget for it. It's just $20,000 for that box that we were showing. But there is no set of scopes that I've ever used that is as powerful and as creative. So there are other scopes that do many of the same things, but the ease of use of the interface of being able to just grab things and sample them and move around and see it in a different way when you're actually in the field and actually need to use it. It's and I will say that combined with being able to grade we were doing stuff where we weren't using the grading software they were talking about, but we were loading LUTs into the FSHDR. And being able to load it, look, and being able to see those things is, you can't do HDR work without something like it. Anyway, so there's other scope options that are, but all of them to do what it does, especially to go to 8K and everything else, prices are all about that number. Like, there's not a lot of other options that are going to be cheaper. So the resolution is incredible, on the scopes. And again, they're just really easy to configure. And because they're on that computer, they're really easy to screen share and grab onto it. A lot of times with other scopes, you end up trying to figure out how to get the image out of it. Like, how do I get it to something that I can actually see? We were looking at it on Zoom. That's not trivial with many of the other scope options of getting just the readout output into something you can look at online. Because we're getting to a point where we can shade the cameras with that scope option, and with like Atems and Blackmagic cameras, I can shade the cameras from thousands of miles away. Like, because I can see the scope and I can light up I just get in. If I have a router that I'm in the subnet, over a VPN, I can sit there and just, look at the cameras and shade them. And that's a big deal for us, because finding local shaders in a lot of places is not trivial. Like in LA, New York, it's not hard, but you get out of those cities, and the pickings gets real short real quick of someone who really technically understands how to really push the cameras. And so it's easier for us to just have them put the camera up and just run everything remotely with someone that knows exactly what we're looking for, especially in HDR, because the HDR target is so much harder than Rec 709 is so easy. like it just, it looks good, fine. But when you get into whether are you doing HLG, or are you doing HDR10 or Vision, or all these different situations, what LUTs you're using, what's going out, so having that becomes super important. So anyway, that's my experience. But I had it for a couple months, and it was good. Next question.
Tony Mobley, Newman, Georgia. How many of Apple Mac M1 owners are iOS apps on your desktop?
I'm only using a couple. I'm using the Wingman for the USB pre or Mix Pre, and also the Blackmagic camera control has worked really well. That's really cool. But those are the only two that I'm using right now. But the M1s are very mission specific for me, so it's not like I'm using them in general use. Next question.
Benjamin Adiput here from San Carlos says, when recording on an Atem Mini ISO, do people also record each take on individual cameras using mid-range Panasonic cameras and considering recording in 4K 30 frames per second? Is there an easy way to substitute in the higher resolution footage in Resolve or Final Cut Pro? Note the Atem Mini Pro ISO is what he's dealing with.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, you can absolutely do that. In fact, I believe Grant just walked through it straight away when he introduced the software. So yeah, it's pretty easy to do. If I were you, I would convert to ProRes before you do that, but it can probably take just about anything you can throw at it.
I don't know if it works without the Blackmagic cameras, because I don't know if it'll...
it won't be shaded. It won't be color graded.
Well, no, but I think
I believe it does the audio sync.
Does it use audio to sync it, or does it use the fact that it's starting records on the cameras at the same time it's starting around the ISO? Bill,
you can't remote start the ISO record in the camera unless it's Blackmagic.
Okay. Right, that's what I'm saying. That's the only way to get it frame. That's the problem. Go ahead, Bill.
I don't know about Resolve. I use Final Cut, but in Final Cut, there's a compound clip workflow. So if you use compound clips, cut those, you can replace the original clip with a higher resolution version. It'll just ripple through your timeline and everything will go.
Can you use compound clips in multicam?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Tucker?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you jam time code, then I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work, but that's it.
But it's I know I haven't done it, but I've talked to people who are doing it where they use the ISO to do the ISO records, and then they cut the whole thing, and then they just swap the 6K footage in. And I know that works. Go ahead, Benjamin.
Just I wasn't going to use timecode for this. I was just going to use audio sync, just record internal audio on all the cameras, but this might be a reason to use timecode. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Next question.
John Wigglesworth in Singapore.
Hey, John. I know John Wigglesworth. So anyway, it's good. You got to come, John. You should come onto the panel. That's all I'm saying. All right, next question. Keep going. Next question. Just kidding.
No, that would be wrong. Right. Haven't been here for a while, so apologize if this has been answered before. Noticing that you've now got a pretty consistent 1080p stream in webinar. Does this come with the business account level, or is this a separate on request option?
It is a separate and complicated on request that took a long time for us to get, and we kind of ganged up. I went made requests from many different angles to get it. So yeah, if you're working on high profile events that have some real reason, and I think that the audience is not too big, I think that you actually get into a situation where you might be able to make it work. But yeah, it's not. There's no automatic way to get it. Next question.
Ken Jordan from Epson in the UK says, does anyone use the DaVinci Resolve speed editor, and does it really help to speed up video editing?
Go ahead, Jason.
I've tried it. Here's my main problem. I'm too good at Final Cut. Like, it annoys me. So anytime I really want to get stuff done, it's like, no, Final Cut.
Yeah, the cuts, I'm assuming you're talking about the cuts page, and I keep on opening it up and trying to do something with it, and then I just go, nope. so then I go back to the edit page. So I haven't gotten it. I don't know anybody who has. They keep on selling it to us, and they've got a whole controller now for it. But a lot of us just haven't gotten our head around it. I'm not saying it's not useful. That you come back in a year and we might go, wow, I can't believe I've been editing that way. But so far I haven't gotten to that point yet. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, and what makes you fast in Final Cut isn't necessarily just the editorial tools. They are fast, and there's all sorts of keyboard shortcuts, but the whole process of bringing footage in, marking it up, and then being able to call clips to your playhead instantly, for me, is what cuts massive amounts of time out of the editorial process. The more you prep, the faster you get, and that's just how it's designed. That's how Randy Ubilis designed it.
Next question.
Chris Widener of Lafayette, Indiana said, I had an issue with a Canon camera today. Any recommendations for a low temperature friendly camera? And he notes the rain hood didn't help as much as I assumed. Cameras and water.
Generally, it's not the camera. It is it's usually the battery. The battery is what just dies really quickly when it gets cold. So that usually is, and a lot of us keep separate. What I've done for shooting is having a separate battery and literally having a battery pack against my chest, which is probably not a good idea, but it worked really well for me because it was handheld. It was really cold, and but you want to keep it near your core so the battery stays warm. And that has been the number one issue. And then the other part is going from anything humid, like you want to keep the camera. So when I've worked in cold, we keep the cameras packed in desiccators. So we have lots of desiccation that is going. So we, packs and packs and packs of it. And we have that for a long period of time before we take them out, because what's getting you is that the moisture is actually the water is expanding and then cracking things or causing other issues, moving things around. And so you can actually lose. The reason I know how to do that is because I've gone from really humid and hot into a really cold environment really fast, maybe refrigeration or freezing, and lost the camera that way. So anyway, so then we kind of built a pattern of drying the cameras out before we put them into a cold environment. Go ahead, John, and then Ray, and then TJ, and then Jason. But pretty quickly, we're running out of time.
I was just going to recommend if you're using one of the DSLRs, getting a battery grip so you can double up your batteries, and put your camera in a Ziploc bag before you bring it in so that you don't have to dehumidify it as much is another option.
Go ahead, Ray.
The other thing is, don't bring it from a hot, humid area out into the cold. Take it out.
Exactly what I did.
The desiccators are an excellent idea, but take it out and pre-cool it before you're going to use it, because man, it'll fog up everything.
Yeah, go ahead. Fog wasn't the problem for me. It was just not running it ever again. Anyway, TJ, and then Jason.
Like John said, when you have a cold camera, put it in a plastic bag in the cold. Cold air is dry. So then when you bring it in, if it's sealed in plastic, you're not going to get any moisture from the humid air into it while it warms up. You're not going to get condensation on the internal electronics.
Jason?
A little bit of useless color. Desiccants are the chemical version of a dehumidifier. They're the things in your vitamin pill bottle that say do not eat. They basically just suck moisture out of whatever you give them. So save those packets and put them in all your Pelican cases.
Well, also you can buy ones that are much larger and they're bakeable. So you can actually, what you can do is you can throw them into a case and you put them into a little mesh bag oftentimes, and then throw them in there, but like a big one. and you throw it in there, and it'll dry everything out, and then you take them out and you put them back, in the oven and bake them, and they'll go right back to their original state, and they work pretty well. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, sorry, jumping in late here. Yeah, and you can get them really, really cheap from Alibaba or Amazon. You can get like a kilo of them for $5.
Super useful. Next question. We're running out of time. We're gonna move quickly.
Moving on to Matt Cool of Montreal, Quebec. How are people cleaning wireless mics and IFBs when shooting VIPs?
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, in terms of IFBs, even these little tiny micro, I don't even know if you can see this, but the head on the little in-ear IFB is so small, but literally you can pull them off. Anything that's really good should have some little tiny thing. And just soap and water every couple of days if I'm going to use it myself, and if it goes to anybody else, it gets soap and water cleaned before I use it again.
Jason, then Tucker.
Do not clean IFBs. Do not unwrap IFBs. Hand the IFB to the talent, and if they know what they're doing, they'll know how to put it in. But especially COVID times 10 is just be aware of it. They're inexpensive. Just consider it a disposable. Get the mic back. No, keep it. It's just part of the budget.
Tucker. Oh, can't hear you, Tucker.
I just dropped in chat. DPA Microphones has a really, really good microphone hygiene guide. Take a look at that. It'll tell you exactly what to do.
Yep, go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I agree with Jason. Like for the earpieces for IFBs, expendables, they're cheap enough. For wireless microphones, what I do is I clean it off with isopropyl, but after that I use a natural oil to keep it hydrated, because the cables will get brittle if you leave it to dry out with alcohol. So I use olive oil or a citrus-based oil as well, and it seems to work good.
We have used a mixture of rubbing alcohol as well as UVC. So we hit them with UVC right at the very end, just to kind of, if we missed any part, that usually gets it. The UVC that you can hold with your hand is maybe useful. It's the UVCs that have all the warnings on them that you can't be in the same room with them on. Those ones are super useful. Anyway, so but with great power comes great responsibility, and I accidentally saw one for like a second, and my eyes were itchy for a long time. So be very careful with if you're going to do a true UVC clean out. I definitely treat the IFBs, at least the ear insert, as something we throw away, or we don't throw them away. We keep them, and we use them ourselves. We clean them off, and then we use them ourselves, or for lower areas. But we don't usually, if they're a VIP, they get a new one all the time. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, for when we hand off microphones to talents now, since the pandemic started, we always hand it off to them in a sealed plastic container, and that's been disinfected 2 days prior to the production date, and then we throw a couple of alcohol pads in there as well for them to clean it off if they really want to be sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
So this is pretty industry standard. Bob Heil also makes a version of this stuff. It says antibacterial. Keep in mind, the perception is the reason that, behind my initial thing. Mm-hmm. If they're a VIP, make it part of the budget.
Yeah. Next question.
Mike Burns, Spokane. I missed the fun coffee challenge video project Office Hours did some months ago. Alex, any plans for another one? Seemed like lots of fun.
Yeah, I actually want to do it again. Do the coffee challenge now that we've had a little time. So we'll do that. We'll do that one again, and then we'll do more challenges. I definitely plan to have. I'm right now on my docket is to do a bunch of work with Chris to do a bunch of updates to Mukana, and then also getting the website up and getting the new YouTube page up. And there's a list of things that I'm working through, and then having the Resolve class. And so the next couple months are busy. But as we get through some of the kind of just the managing minor things, then we'll get into doing more challenges. I'm a big fan of challenge-based learning. So you'll see more and more challenges. The main thing is also the size of the group. I don't want to put too many challenges on too small of a group, because then people get, they'll have a mixture of fear of missing out and burnout all at the same time. And that creates a lot of cognitive dissonance. So I'm trying to kind of pace us, especially now that we're doing our first trainings on the weekends. I don't want to add more things that have people feel like they have to do it or they're not going to get another chance. And so that's what I'm measuring as I'm kind of building that out. But we're definitely going to do more challenges. Next question.
Scott Gorman of Sydney says, how important is it to have a separate Dante network subnet? How do you configure Dante via software for the subnet if you only have a single network adapter?
Go ahead, Tucker.
I would say it's incredibly important to have a separate network. I have done work on networks that are one network for all, and that can work. Use a supported switch, Cisco SG350s, SG300s. Dante Via, just avoid it. It's terrible. Yeah, that's about it.
Go ahead, Jason.
That's like saying theoretically, could you have British drivers on the right-hand side of a 4-lane highway and American drivers on the other side of a 4-lane highway? The answer is yes, but no, not really.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, if ever, I think Audinate refers to networks with multiple protocols running through it as converged networks, if that's correct. It's really important if you do that you enable IGMP snooping and also QoS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Scott. Can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
So I've just set up my first Dante network, and to be able to send Zoom calls over into PC, from Zoom on a Mac over to PC, and running vMix. And so, yeah, I agree with what you're saying about VIA. It's not that good. I have a Dream Machine Pro, and so I'll enable IGMP snooping on that and set up a separate VLAN, would you suggest?
Go ahead, Tucker, and then Ed.
Absolutely, yeah. Set up a separate VLAN, go through the IGMP snooping is a great thing. Also, reach out on Discord. There's several of us that would be more than happy to walk through that with you and step through the process.
Go ahead, Ed.
I'll just say to somewhat counter some of the other comments, currently, I'm running a Dante network alongside my internet traffic, alongside NDI, just fine with a simple managed switch that I don't have QoS or IGMP snooping enabled on. So try things before you go configuring your switches, because I've seen so many people actually cause more problems because they misconfigured their switch. So try your issue out first, and Audinate even recommends this first. Get it going, and if you're having problems, then those are the places to look. But if you're not having problems, then don't break what is already working.
All right, go ahead, Scott, real quick, and then we'll move on.
So what you're saying is avoid the software and go for the Avient adapters, such as the USB one.
Okay. I'll let Tucker finish that one, and then we'll move on.
Dante Virtual Sound Card would be a good option in that situation, as opposed to the adapters. But the adapters are a great solution.
Next question.
Andy Dolph in Durham, New Hampshire says recommendations for how to learn to shade cameras at least decently.
We're gonna do a second hour soon. I have the chart and I have the cameras, and I just need a little time to get the room set up for it. But we're gonna do a second hour where I kind of talk about the way I do it, which is not the standard way of doing it. Which I already kind of walked through. I have a kind of a crazy way of doing it that I've learned is just as accurate, a lot faster, and doesn't require as much technical skill. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, and shading presumes that actually came out of the live broadcast field, where you have multiple cameras like at a football game, and there's a professional who's spending their time getting those cameras to match.
We got to go real quick.
Changing.
Run out of time.
The other thing is that there's camera basic balancing, and then there's color grading. For looks, there are two different things. The basics of getting a camera to look decent are pretty well known, and you can go online and get all sorts of training for Resolve and stuff.
When I see shading, I'm not thinking about LUTs or anything else. I'm just thinking about all the cameras look the same.
Yeah.
Go, Mickey, real quick, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I think aside from the actual skill of doing it, I think it's important to build up as well, knowing the aesthetics that you like watch shows that look good, live shows that look good for you, and get used to seeing things that are good, so that you can now critically look at your own work and try to reach that point as well.
Trailers are really good for that because you can screen capture them. So if I like the look of a trailer, I'll freeze frame it, and I'll just capture that frame. And I have little folders full of movies that I like the look of. And then it helps me kind of think through things. And I've been doing that with ads since, for 30 years. Next question.
Andy Dolph is back again from Durham with, has anyone used both the Bumblebee and the Ear Heroes? How would they compare? I've never had the audio implements, but my impression was they're not easy to listen to. Am I wrong?
The audio implements is very limited in its response. It's designed for you just to hear speech, and it is tinty. Like I can't tell whether everyone has good mics or bad mics or anything else when I'm wearing them. I haven't used the Bumblebees, but everyone's talked about that they're much fuller range than the Ear Heroes. The Ear Heroes sound dramatically better than the Bumblebee. They're dramatically better than the audio implements. They're just a different thing. For me at least, the audio implements takes less time to put in. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I haven't tried the Ear Heroes, but I've used the Bumblebees for like 4 months, 2 years ago, and they're definitely not like proper in-ear studio monitors, and you can't like really mix on them. But they're definitely better than typical comms headsets like the audio implements.
Next question.
Kyle Hammond, Chicago. With regards to holding off on ordering the 6K until Wednesday, are you thinking the announcement will unseat the 6K as the great buy or just make it cheaper?
It's 36 hours away. Like we don't know. The problem is we don't know. Blackmagic has like a 50-50 running thing where they do meh. Like they put something out and you're like, I don't really understand. So there's about half of their keynotes are like that, and the other half are like, oh my goodness. So what we're saying is for 36 hours, unless you absolutely need to use something on Thursday, I'd probably wait. That's all I'm saying, Jason.
Put a stop on your credit card. Like, come on, people.
Yeah, we need intervention here. It's 36 hours. All right. Next question.
Mike Burns, Spokane. Speaking of Vixias, can anybody confirm the HF S200 will work on an Atem Mini?
Go ahead, Benjamin.
The Blackmagic forums seem to say yes.
I don't even know what that is. What's the HS? It's just one of the little.
It's just a low end camera.
Yeah, it's one of their. Well, at the time it was $1,000. Come on.
Yep. All right. Next question.
Attila Axe says, Ocean Shores, Australia. What's the progress on the podcast version of Office Hours? Some days seem to not show up on YouTube, and a podcast would be a good solution for the people on the other side of the world.
Mickey would like to know because he's been cutting these. He's got them all ready to go. So I'm pretty close. I was just setting things up in Libsyn this week. So I'm hoping it'll either be next week. It'll definitely be by March 1st. So, I'm cruising through it now. I've got stuff opened and I'm kind of putting this stuff together. And so we're pretty close. It'll be next week or the week after. Next question.
Mike Burns, Spokane. Are the speakers in the new M1 MacBook Pros much better than the new M1 Airs?
I only have MacBook Pros. Oh, M1 MacBook. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
They are the very best high fidelity piezo tweeters that are in a metal box. No, the fidelity is not going to come out of a Mac Mini no matter what you do. But it's got a great little chamber there. There's a lot of space in there.
Okay, so my question, I guess, is the Air versus the Pros. I know the Air speakers are louder, but I hear the Pro speakers are better. Because I'm vacillating between the two because I don't really need the touch bar, the LED touch bar. I don't need that. I have no interest in that. So
get a Mac
I'm just
Mini.
wondering.
All right.
The
go ahead,
Mini? No, I need a portability and I need a screen. Come on, guys.
I would never buy the Air. that's my thing. Like I wouldn't buy it. I would buy the MacBook Pro. Of course, I'm waiting to see what they do with the next version. I probably if you absolutely need a computer right now, I get the MacBook Pro in my opinion. If it's not burning, like I have a project that I have to do, I'd probably wait until June. It's WWDC. It's usually when new hardware comes out. You're close enough, and now we're, the hunt is really on because now we know that every time there's new hardware, it's going to be amazing. Like it's not like, it'll be something incremental, or they'll send out they're not going to send out like the last MacBook Pro. I think they sent out a press release. Like they didn't even do a presentation about it. And so we're now in a mode where for the next year and a half, every announcement's going to be exciting. Go ahead, Bill.
The 16-inch MacBook Pro, when it came out, I bought one, and the speaker array and the microphone array in it were a substantial improvement over the last one I had. It actually sounds decent. This is not a high-fidelity thing, though, so it is much better than old laptops, but laptops are not hi-fis.
Next question.
Andy Dolph again. Fun topic. If we run out of questions, is there a digital camera that's surpassed the resolution of the Imax film? If so, what?
Go ahead, Jason.
Film does not really have resolution. It's only scanned in. So
well,
as far as I can tell, no. Okay, it has grain, but
like you can't scan an 8mm. You can't do Super 8 and expect it to have the discernible resolution over it.
This big. I'm exaggerating, but you get the idea.
You can more finely scan it. I think that because there's also sharpness against grain. It'd be really interesting to compare like a 12K image. I'd love to see the 12K image up against an IMAX frame that's scanned well, just to see what that actually meant. Go ahead, Mickey, and then Bill.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the resolution equivalent is of 70 mil IMAX is, but I know that a lot of the digital IMAX films that have been showing were captured by the 8K Reds.
Go ahead, Bill.
I think the top camera out there is generally considered to be the Panavision Millennium DXL that Michael Cioni spent the last 5 years working on. And I don't know, you'd have to ask him how close it is to an actual 35mm film print. I know they're getting closer and closer, but whether he believes that it's actually all the way there, or one of his other color science friends, I don't know. I don't know enough to know that. Doing a quick search, a lot of it is bouncing around 18K for IMAX. So that'll be more than the 12K, so that of the actual like what you would actually get. And I will say that most likely once you got with 12K, you could probably up-res it to 18K. That would look pretty good. So next
at that
question.
point, your focus puller better be perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Next question.
Tim Holm of San Lorenzo has our last question. Anybody used the PTZ Optics 30X SDE Gen 2 live streaming broadcast camera? That's a mouthful. I don't need 4K. I also have good lighting, but at times I may have to pan to a lower light situation. And then he's got a link.
Go ahead, Andy. Oh, still quiet. Andy?
I put them in some performing arts venues, 9 spaces this summer, basically because it was the best thing we could afford. I had to do full streaming systems for $11,000 worth of gear per room. And they're okay. I think they're about the same as what I would expect from any other camera with a similar size sensor. I've heard that PTZ Optics actually makes a lot of the lower to mid-level PTZs that are sold under other people's brand names. So there may be some advantage in getting it directly from them. But they're fine for the money.
Good, Scott.
Yeah, do you want to buy one? Trying to sell mine.
Yeah.
No, I'm afraid.
I've got a P200 and I've got a PTZ Optics. One of those cameras that the gentleman's. It's night and day. The Bird Dog is just such a great camera.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tucker.
If I was doing something that I was going to put in the back of a room and was going to use a camera that's of that price range, I would probably consider getting a 4K that you can pan and scan inside of, as opposed to a PTZ, because you'll be spending all the money on the image quality, where on those, they're really the motion and the camera function takes a lot away from the image.
I'm curious when we're putting cameras back into the back of a room. We've been thinking a lot about this. I think that the hybrid event is actually going to go a different direction, which is that I think that we're going to end up with a virtual event with watch parties. So you might have a big room of 1,000 people or 500 people, but they're watching a screen. Because the reality is, once you have a big room full of people, they're all looking at iMag anyway. Why bother giving them the stage? Why don't you just have a studio, push it up to a screen, let them watch it? you could have the speakers could still be in a studio in the same building. They can still hang out with them at dinner, but everybody gets a better experience that way. No bad audio, no bad lighting, no cameras in the back. Just a really good video that they can watch. Anyway, just something to think about. I don't know. I know that I'm not going back to putting cameras in the back of the room. So anyway, it's good to see all of you. I think the evening thing's working, although I'm going to get in trouble for being late again. There's a so anyway, I was late this morning and late now. So, but it's worth it. It's good hanging out with all of you. I think the evening thing's a lot of fun. I think it's a lot of fun to have. What I love about it is that there's like this changing crew. We have this other, we're starting. There's some people that are going to both of them, but there's a lot of new people that couldn't make it in the morning that we get a different level of expertise in different areas. So if you could answer the question. You could ask the same question. Don't do this a lot because it'll make it crazy. But you could ask the same question in the morning and the evening. You get a very different answer. So it's
we get Tucker. We missed you, Tucker.
I know. We get Tucker. So it's great. So thanks to all of the evening crew for coming. I know that eventually. I'm holding off. I got to figure out how to do it. I know that eventually it'll be every night, but we're going to stick with once a month, once a week for a little while. I haven't figured out how to make that work. So anyway, but we're working on it. Anyway, go ahead, Benjamin, before we close out.
Anyone feeling like a post show?
Huh?
Yeah. You launch one if you build it.
Oh,
Benjamin.
I'll put something in chat.
You can put it in the chat. So Benjamin will put it in. Benjamin's just going to keep going with it. So anyway, so Benjamin will put a link in Mukana. We'd love to know from the folks if there's anybody that's in Mukana that was also in the Clubhouse. Is anyone here? What'd you think, Mickey?
Yeah, I was driving around earlier doing some errands, and the Clubhouse was nice. Compared to, because for some reason on iOS at least, the stream in Mukana cuts out every now and then when your screen has been off for a couple minutes, and the Clubhouse version just played, and that's nice. I mean, fidelity. Not really. It sounds very compressed, which is, I think, typical of what we hear in Clubhouse, at least in my experience. But yeah, I think that's just.
But it wasn't broken.
Clubhouse's, no, not broken. It's just, I think Clubhouse's transport isn't as high of fidelity as others.
Yeah. So maybe that's
a ping from a friend from Michael Madsdorf, who heard us in Clubhouse.
Hello, Mr. Madsdorf.
So Michael was listening in Clubhouse today, and
did he like it? Did he say it was good?
Yeah, he said he's new to the app and he's trying to figure it out, and he wants to know about Mukana. I'll ping him offline and talk him through Mukana.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, thanks everyone in Clubhouse. Thanks everybody here, and we'll see many of you tomorrow morning.